Victors, and this is the Orangebloods post-game show sponsored by Loewy Law Firm. I'm Geoff Ketchum. That's Anwar Richardson. Glad to be with you on this Friday after Thanksgiving, if for no other reason than the Texas Longhorns 22-17 victors over Kansas State. Anwar, the Longhorns end a six-game losing streak rather. Roshan Johnson has a game that will probably go down in, I don't know that I want to say Longhorn lore, because at the end of the day, it was a win that moved the team to 5-7. But it felt very much like an attitude game. It felt like he carried this team and gave it some juice. And as a byproduct, the Longhorns can smile today for the first time in 2 months. And presumably, the Longhorns now go into the 2022 offseason with a lot of work to do, but at least the pressure of not having a win to end the season from early October isn't weighing on this team. It feels like it's not a monumental thing, but it's a hell of a lot better than the alternative.
Catch, what we will do in this post-game show is something that we talked about that we should have done after the TCU post-game, which is we're not going to nitpick a win.
Bingo.
and we are going to give this team their freaking flowers today, with the understanding that clearly maybe, they didn't meet expectations, but it is a win. It is a way to, end this losing streak that seemed like it was, forever, going to last forever. Thank you, Jay, for acknowledging our correct predictions on calling this Texas victory. It's interesting, Catch, because when you start off with like Roshan, I think you and I are two people who are really high on Roshan as a running back, and two people that we feel, and I've been saying this for a while, that we feel like Roshan's got some NFL upside for sure, just by his durability, physical build, physical brand of football. He's a guy to me, Catch, that gets in the NFL. It could be one of those like backup for years kind of guys that you look up one day and you're like, that guy's still in the league. Like, that's what Roshan looks like. And I'm sure and again, career backup is not like an insult by any stretch of the imagination. Some people view it, but he's a guy that I think, Catch, he looks like at least a day 3 pick, at this point. Like, he looks like a guy that heading into next season, we know Roshan could be, day 1 to early day 2, depending on NFL teams and their evaluations as far as where they value running backs. But for Roshan, this for me was one of those games that he can like hang his hat on and say, all right, going into next year, like I've got some things to look forward to past University of Texas at this running back position. It's a really fascinating, last I'll say, Catch, it's a fascinating evolution, because it's so almost easy to forget that this guy was a quarterback at one point when you see how effective he is as a running back. Like,
so physical.
Yeah, he is. Like, he doesn't run like a guy who was a quarterback that's taught to slide. He is a really physical and an amazing specimen.
Yeah, I think Roshan Johnson is somewhere between Malcolm Brown and maybe like a Chris Obanaya, both guys that carved out NFL careers, guys that earned their NFL pensions, and guys that don't have to apologize for what they were able to accomplish at the next level. I think when we look at Roshan Johnson, we talked about it earlier this week, he's probably one of the 6 best players on the team. He just plays at a position where the best player on this team is in front of him. But, he's a guy that can start for most of the teams in the Big 12 and be a significant contributor, I think, for just about anybody in the country. He's an NFL level talent. But more than that, he cares about football. He cares about this team. He cares about winning. He cares about being a leader. I think he almost takes on too much, because we talked about the interviews that he's given this season where he's been pretty open about wanting to be a leader and be a guy that can pull this team out of its quagmire. And it's not as easy always as Roshan Johnson plays really hard and really well, and poof, you get a dub. Today, it kind of was as simple as that. You had two teams that were limited at the quarterback position that played a pretty good brand of defense, and it weirdly turned into a Deuce Roshan Johnson battle royale for supremacy the day after Thanksgiving. And he was better than Deuce Vaughn today. And Deuce Vaughn's a baller. So that Roshan Johnson went head-to-head with one of the best running backs in the Big 12 today. And not just because he finished with more stats and finished with a W, but he was genuinely better today. I mean, he ran so hard, and, you know, that's no slight to Deuce Vaughn, who was really good today, but it speaks to how good I thought Roshan was. It was a reminder again today of how flawed this team is, that it struggled to win today against a Kansas State team that was just putrid at quarterback. I mean, I don't know what happens today if Skylar Thompson plays for Kansas State, but Texas loses this game. I mean, if the difference between Kansas State having a nothing at quarterback versus a pretty good quarterback, it changes the dynamics of everything. And Texas finds a way to win. We're not going to nitpick this thing, but it was a reminder Texas has a way to go before they climb back up to a level that they'll feel good about. There's a lot of work to do. And there were a lot of guys that played today that played well, and they're going to need to bottle some of this up today and take it with them into the offseason, because I did think we saw more flat-out fight, effort, and want to today than it feels like and not just because they won. I mean, you could feel it early on. Frankly, as soon as Sark started taking some dudes off the field that didn't want to be on.
I mean, that's a different conversation, but they're definitely, you know, without calling names, they were definitely, you know.
Just go back. Will Howard should never go 71 yards on your defense for a touchdown. All you have to do is watch that play and watch the defense and watch the players on it. And it up until then, it spoke volumes about kind of where this team has been for the last 6 games. And to Sark's credit, or maybe even not his credit, took the 7th game to maybe pull some of these dudes out of the lineup. But frankly, it made the defense and it made the team better. I mean, they played better football when they made some changes that they've been slow to make, but they weren't slow to make today. And it might have been the difference between winning and losing, because Texas couldn't afford to have another defensive drive where there was effort lacking. And say what you want to, for most of the game today, second quarter on, I mean, Texas pitched a shutout in the second half. They played hard.
Well, yeah. And I mean, they also came up with, you know, the 2 huge stops on 4th down that end up being the difference maker. And, you know, this is a team that catch all throughout the season when we've done these post-game shows. This is a team that has struggled to get off the field on 3rd downs and definitely has struggled on 4th downs. So, I mean, it was very telling what they were able to really do, you know, this year, this at this point, where maybe it took this moment for Sark to say, I've seen enough. Like, screw it. We're just not going to do this anymore. Let's just find a way to move in a different direction. And, you know, we've been wondering where the Jalen Ford has been, you know, for, you know, all season long, and thinking like that's a guy that should be out there. And, you know, there was the obviously things that they made in the secondary, but they end up being the right call, ends up being the right moves for what this team really needed, because this was, it was 17 points. I mean, this is one of their best. This is probably their best performance since, you know, Louisiana from a defensive standpoint. I forget what the Tech score was, but, you know, I think they were pretty controlling against Tech. We haven't seen this defense look as good as it has up until, you know, it's been weeks, to be quite honest with you, and it might have been the first game of the season where it's looked this good.
It helps when you play 10 versus 11, defense versus the offense, and the other team is just deficient at quarterback. And Kansas State came into the game today with I don't know that I'll call Deuce Vaughn elite, but man, there are times when he looks like Barry Sanders. So maybe he is elite. Like, he's not strong, and he's not the guy that you want running up, I think, necessarily up the middle on 4th and 1. But there are times a day when you were like, good God, Deuce, how did you do that? They were bad at quarterback. And, for Kansas State, I would imagine for their fans, it would have been a really frustrating game because they've been a better team than this all season long. Quality win for Texas on the whole. I mean, Kansas State is bowl eligible, been a good, solid Big 12 team, competitive every single week. I'm sure they were frustrated by not having Skylar Thompson available, and it's kind of weirdly the story of Skylar Thompson's entire career that every time it feels like for his standpoint, he starts gaining some momentum, there's always an injury around the corner. And, I'm just thankful, frankly, that Skylar Thompson didn't play because I make no bones about it. I'm so glad that Texas won today. I mean, we've already entered apathy stage in the final weeks of this season. Anwar, I just didn't want to think about what it would be like to be on a 7-game losing streak going into the offseason. This doesn't take the edge off of a disaster of a season, but God, at least it stops the bleeding a little bit. And Texas has been bleeding out as a program, as evidenced by the fact they got a decommitment in the middle of the game today, frankly, from one of their better commitments in this class. Armani Winfield decommits in the middle of the game. Just feels like a shitty thing to do. I mean, you've been committed for like 11 months, 10 months, and you couldn't have just waited till tomorrow? Or, I don't know, after the game?
That sounds like a guy who didn't want to tell the coaches. So, you know what I'm saying? So he just does it in the game, and it's like, oh, they'll figure it out later.
Oh, man, I've been doing this a long time. I can't remember any other mid-game decommitments. So whatever the reasons were, the kid probably didn't mean it to be completely hardcore. It's pretty hardcore. And it was, again, there are lots of little reminders today inside of this win that I can't help but think of. Have you ever seen the movie Bull Durham, Anwar? When Nuke LaLoosh is like, I freaking love winning because it's better than losing. Sometimes it's as simple as that, right? But there were little things throughout the day that reminded you this team needs talent. This team needs to get better. There were injuries again today. I mean, Xavier Worthy took a beating today on his body, and it kept him from likely getting the 1,000-yard season that he was hopeful for. He didn't get – I think that was probably the most disappointing thing today. I was rooting for Xavier to get to 1,000 yards and to at least tie the Jordan Shipley touchdown record. Kind of disappointing that neither of those two things happened. He played so hard. And, like Roshan, I almost feel like you put Roshan and Xavier Worthy on a level and say effort, want to, ability. If you had 85 guys like those two, I mean, they're playing football next week. And they got to find a way to get more guys like that. Defensively, it was weird on more because guys would make plays, and I would go, for instance, Mauro Ajomo had a pretty good game today, and Keandre Coburn made a massive play today. Massive. And he showed up, and it was weird because Sarkisian gave them both props after the game for playing through injuries. But it was like, God, where have those two guys been all season long in terms of making game-changing plays? And I don't know, there's no Luke Brockermeyer on the field today, so we get a heavy dose of Jalen Ford and David Benda, and they were pretty good. They were all right. Like, I don't know. It was a weird game. I'm seriously just thankful they won.
Yeah, to the Xavier Worthy point, I mean, he has been that guy who, I mean, for 160 pounds, he sure doesn't play like it. I mean, that guy finishes, once he gets the catch, he will lower his shoulder on a defender. He's not afraid of contact at all. Which again, you would think a guy at 160 would be a little shy of it, and he's not at all. He seems to thrive on it. I mean, he went up, and I mean that catch that he had where his body was kind of twisted, goes down hard. I mean, we've seen him go down hard before, but you can tell that one took a little bit out of him. He eventually comes back into the game, and you kind of wish maybe at some point somebody had like whispered in Sark's ear and said like, "Hey, he's 19 yards away from 1,000." I know it doesn't mean that you're trying to win the game, and you don't necessarily do that specifically, but for a season that needs some positives, that probably would have been a good positive to say, okay, we got freshman 1,000-yard receiver. Like I think that would have been a cool accolade just to have. But we all know he's a baller, and he'll still be on all kinds of lists. He'll probably Big 12 newcomer of the year. He'll be he's one of the top receivers in the nation. So, I mean, we totally understand that. And like I said, the defensive players that you talked about, Catch, played extremely well, played exceptionally well. I'd have to start really looking at some of the stats from a defensive standpoint. But, yeah, K-State converts 1 of 9 on third down, Catch, which, damn, is pretty damn impressive. 0 for 2 on fourth downs. So, I mean, that's a defense that did a lot as far as, stopping the ball and getting, doing what they need to do. And to your point, like Deuce Vaughn, he does run for $143, but it doesn't kill you. You almost can live with that $143 if you know that you're going to hold the quarterback to what did they hold their quarterback to, Catch? It's looks like 9 of 13 for 65 yards. That's pretty pathetic. I mean, so
yeah, yeah. I mean, they just, you don't make more of this game than you need to. Let's give an attaboy. At least I'm willing to give an attaboy to a guy whose name we haven't mentioned yet. I thought Casey Thompson really left it all on the field today. Sarkisian finally, after the game, really seemed to acknowledge that the thumb was a serious issue. Oklahoma game was a long time ago. It hasn't been – Casey Thompson has just showed up and he kept playing. He hasn't always played well. You could tell today he wasn't 100%, but I thought he hung in there. I thought he played hard. I thought he showed – look, when he banged his head on the turf and went out of the game, I was like, okay, that's it for Casey. Like, how much more of a beating can this guy take physically? It looked like such a bad blow. He comes back in a few plays later. He's basically telling Sarkisian, begging Sarkisian to let him back in the game. And they bring him back into the game on a 3rd and 8 play from the 11 with 20 seconds to go. And they ran a quarterback draw. And he threw his body in, like there was no, that wasn't a slide moment. That was a kid who 2 minutes ago was being tested for a concussion, throwing his body into as much danger as needed to be to try to convert the first down. I don't think Casey Thompson's been talked about as a tough guy all season long, but he was tough for me today. And on a day when he was just okay throwing the ball, I mean, nothing to write home about, but he left it all on the field, and sometimes that's enough. I attaboy to Casey Thompson for me.
Yeah, I think that the thumb injury is something that, Sarkisian doesn't play up during the season because he doesn't want to tip the hand to the opponent to let them know, like, my guy's dealing with this, so he kind of downplays it. But we know that thumb really, I mean, Sarkisian acknowledges like the guy was having trouble gripping the ball. I mean, so clearly when you start looking at certain things in hindsight and you say, okay, well, this guy's been playing with an injury that prevents him from gripping the ball. It would explain with some certain degree of logic why when he first started out this season, it seemed like every drive he was scoring a touchdown on, and it seemed like out of control. And then all of a sudden an injury happens. No one talks about it. Somebody from Football Brainiacs, Catch, I think his name is Will think it's Bazier or something. I apologize, Will, if I'm jacking up your last name. In any case, he put something down. He tweets something out like he saw, I guess, Casey's thumb after the game and talked about like how horrific it looked, just in real time. He goes, yeah, you may not like Casey Thompson, but holy shit, he's a fighter. He's been given, oh shit, that's the wrong one I'm quoting. Damn it, there was something else there. In any case, he saw it, and
I saw it, Anwar.
He saw it, and he was like, holy shit, like this thing looks pretty bad. So it's clear that there was a lot more to that. And so I give Casey credit for battling, through that, for not really using that as a crutch or an excuse where he probably could have or should have. And like you said, today, just getting tossed around, banged around, that like well, I thought it was a concussion, and it wasn't. And just the way he battled through, like, yeah, this was one of those games, Catch, where you looked at Roshan battling, Xavier battling, Casey battling. Like, you saw some of the leaders on this team saying, man, just not today. Like, it may happen before, but it's just not going to happen today.
Casey Thompson played like a guy who treated today like senior day. And I don't know that I could just be talking out of my ass, but he played thirsty today. Like a lot of guys did. There were a lot of guys today that you could tell they were playing their last game. And it meant a little something extra. I thought Casey looked more into this game than the last few games, when I feel like maybe that thumb injury is taking a little bit of his I don't blame him. He's hurt. He's injured. And not playing at 100% can take the spirit out of you a little bit. And I think there have been times when Casey's just looked empty. Like he doesn't know why he's out there. He can't really explain what's going on. And today, Casey Thompson played like a guy who wasn't going to care if he made mistakes. He was going to leave it on the field. And like, again, I give him props for that. I think that it was, today, his effort today reminded me of how unfair I thought it was last week when Sarkisian said he was a microcosm of the team. I still don't think that comment was fair, because that's a bad team. And, I'd make a case if you had 85 Casey Thompsons, you're probably not 5-7. So I don't know that you're 11-1, but you ain't 5-7. And there are dudes that have been playing all season long that truly embody this team's 5-7 record. Don't know that I would think Casey Thompson is that guy.
So before you move over off that though, Catch.
Yeah.
One of the things that I did ask Sarkisian and it relates to the quarterback thing, Hudson. He acknowledges that Hudson has a high ankle sprain. And I think you and I, Catch, would know that high ankle sprains that's a little bit of a recovery time. Like, that's not something soon. Like, he said he didn't think. He said he didn't. I believe he used the word think it would require surgery. But wanted to at least get your reaction to that, because I mean that could mean. And again, we'll figure out timetables as it goes along. But when they start winter conditioning, you wouldn't expect him to be ready to go in the beginning of January. That sounds like something you're trying to get a guy ready for, spring ball.
Well, I mean, it comes down to ultimately there are high ankle sprains, and then there are high ankle sprains that are so bad that you're talking about surgery. I mean, I know that they said that it might not need surgery, but I can't say that I've heard many high ankle sprains described with the word surgery. I mean, we all know it's tricky. We know it takes sometimes, it's like a 6 to 8 week injury at times, like best case scenario. I don't know. I mean, was he describing a high ankle sprain, or was he describing a broken foot? I'm guessing he'll have some limitations at the beginning without knowing anything else. He's got 2 months before the start of off-season workouts, essentially ballpark 7 weeks. Yeah, I mean, look, Casey Thompson and Hudson Card are both guys that have decisions to make soon. if they're going to be, if they want to find the best spot possible, it behooves them to put their names in the portal ASAP. I mean, same is true for all these guys. I mean, you can transfer in March if you're really good and still find a destination that maybe you'll love. But if you want to have as many options as possible, then that's something that would happen soon with Hudson Card. If he were to transfer, I wonder if Hudson would finish the spring semester just because academics are so important to him that he's in the business school. So I could see him wanting to finish out the – I don't know. I don't know that I have a great Hudson Card reaction other than, damn, that didn't sound good. Who the hell knows with regards to what that means for his future? Because if I had to bet money, I'd probably put money on both of those dudes leaving. Now, maybe one stays, but we know both aren't staying. So we'll see. Real quick, I thought your question about the bowl game was interesting because there are a couple of ways you could answer the question of, do you want to play in a bowl game if that's an opportunity in front of you? And the one thing Steve Sarkisian didn't say was, hell yeah, we want to play in a bowl game. Give me my 15 practices sight unseen. It was a whole lot of, well, he clearly didn't want to just come out and say, we don't want to play. But
his face said it, though. I can tell you that much.
It did. It conveyed on camera as well. His body language, his face, his words. Who knows if he would be back for a bowl game? I mean, sometimes you can do more harm than good. And maybe going to a bowl game right now is one of them, especially if you're in one of those really crappy bowl games. It means you don't get a break right now. You know what I mean? It's like you go get a week off, but then you're practicing again first week of December because the game's around Christmas. And you put yourself into a position where maybe in like a month, Casey Thompson would – I don't know. I don't know what Casey needs. Casey might be a guy that needs surgery. I don't know. Like, how bad is that thumb that dudes are seeing pictures of it in November and talking about that it looked broken when they looked at it? So there's so many questions about this team. It needs to start focusing on 2022. And I think you and I 100% agree that 15 practices – I just don't know how much good that does this team. The guys that they're going to count on for the most part next season played a lot today. They've played a lot in the last few games. I don't know that making those dudes practice 15 more times makes next year's team significantly better. Like, what's more valuable, the coaches having all that time to focus on improving the roster, or the guys on the roster getting 15 more practices when they've already had 50? I don't know.
I mean, here's the other thing, Catch, too. Do you want to risk potentially losing an 8th game in the season? I mean,
you can't get to 500. So even a win leaves you at 6 and 7.
Correct. But what is a potential 5 and 8 look like? I mean, that sounds worse. I know 5 and 7 doesn't sound great, but I'm with you, Catch. I know that there's a thought process of, hey, play the young guys, give them some practices and so on and so forth. And there's another thought process, like I said, when I even think Sarkisian didn't come out and say, hell no, because he can't say that. But when he's like, we are banged up, man. And
that was like the first thing he said was like acknowledging the comment that you made about being banged up. He was like, yeah. Yeah, we are a little banged up, aren't we? Huh?
Yeah, I mean, and if you're him, I mean, and I don't know what it does for your brand. What do you play, like an Air Force or an Army? Like you play some team that runs some triple option package in a bowl game. I'm not quite sure what that really does for you as a brand. Like at this point,
you play a team with a healthy quarterback, Anwar. I mean, that's That's
You don't
that's
have a healthy
asking to
quarterback.
lose right there, right now.
Yeah, I mean, we know Hudson Card's not going to play. We know that if you get that Casey Thompson's thumb is not going to be any better a few weeks from now. That sounds like he needs a little bit of time for him to rest. Bijan Robinson is not going to be there, right. And so, you still have Roshan, but Bijan's not going to be there. DeMarvion probably wouldn't want to play in something like this. I mean, you have so many injuries and so many guys that are banged up, but we'll see what the new injury report looks like. I hear backdooring your way into a bowl game, but I think at this point, Ketch, just letting these guys breathe, go off with a win, give them some things to work on in December, and then having them come back ready to hit the ground running in January probably does a little bit more. And especially if you feel like there's been a little dysfunction in the locker room, there's certain guys that Ketch, they probably don't need hanging around this locker room over the next 3 or 4 weeks.
No, this season needs to be done. They need to take it out back and Old Yeller the damn thing.
Oh yeah,
and
good reference.
Thank you.
That movie. I know.
Haven't said Old Yeller on a post-game show once this season, but boy, upon thinking about it, you probably could have used an Old Yeller reference in the middle of various points of a 6-game losing streak. I thought Sark's usually pretty genuine and honest. When you ask him a question, he'll give you an answer. He couldn't truly fake how uninterested he said. I think he said the right thing, because at the end of the day, if Chris Del Conte says, "Yo, we got bills to pay and it's important for us to go to a bowl game," and who knows, maybe the bowl game's in New York City or something, so that sounds kind of cool. Plus, if the game was far away, the players get money for travel. That could be some cash from Texas to New York City. That's a nice little mileage check for some of these guys. I can spin it, right? But at the end of the day, Sarkisian knows the most important thing he can do between now and the end of the season is live in the portal, live in recruiting, live in the portal, know every name that comes in and goes out, and what your numbers are and how you make this team better. Because one of the games that we did on the modcast over at orangebloods.com on our YouTube channel, which if you missed this week's modcast, go check it out. We didn't spend a lot of time talking about this game per se, as much as we talked about how to improve the 2022 Texas Longhorns through the portal. We kind of went position by position with how many numbers are needed. And it's a lot. It's almost every position on the team needs an upgrade outside of running back and maybe tight end. And they need to make, and they've got to run the risk of, okay, we've got a guy that likes us. How much can he really, is he Ray Thornton or is he something better than that? And they can't, he's just got to be all in on that part of improving this roster, because I don't think they took the portal as seriously last year as they needed to. I don't think they needed it. I don't think they were desperate. And I don't think they, as a byproduct, came out of that with the help that they needed. So the next 6 weeks, which would otherwise, I think, be dedicated towards a bowl game and extending the season, for me, it's all about 2022 and not some damn random bowl game that, half the team might not truly want to play in.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of wins that could be had in the offseason. I think, you still, you'd have to tell me what the decommitment of Winfield does for the recruiting class rankings. I don't know if that's been adjusted or not, but you still finish with a top 10 recruiting class, and that will still be something to hang your hat on going forward. You have the second signing day that'll come up in February. He'll start, Sarkisian talked about, I'm going to start Catch. He can't really start meeting with players on Monday, because he said, I'm going to start meeting down with them on Monday and Tuesday and talk to them about where their futures are here at Texas, and then turn around a week from now and be like, hey, I need you to practice. Like, do you ever need an intro? No, it's a wrap, right? Sarkisian himself seems like to be a person who is saying, I am moving towards the next season. Like, that's where my focus is not on this year, but getting that taken care of, figuring out your quarterback situation going forward, figuring out the transfer portal, which you and I, again, we've hammered it. We hammered it all off season, the importance of it. We will continue to hammer on that. The importance of getting in the guys on both sides of the line that can have an impact for you, offensive line, defensive line, and start building towards next season and realizing that, okay, this one, he described it as this season was being a total roller coaster. So absolutely, you focus in on how to not ride that roller coaster, how to just kind of be, even killed and win consistently. So with you, I think Sark is with you. I think there's a couple of people might, the practices might be good, but the head coach isn't 100% convinced of that. And the only thing I would say is, Charlie Strong had, 15 extra practices after year one, and they went 5-7 and 5-7. So this season has been bad enough. And there's a lot of other positives for him to focus in on to start building some momentum for 2022.
Quick little shout out to Tope Amade. I thought the best moment of the game was him walking out onto the field before the game with a picture of his mom on senior day. He'd lost his mom earlier this year to cancer. And, last 2 years have not been easy. So I can't even begin to fathom like what he was going through. And, it was a lovely moment today to see the look on his face as he came down out of the tunnel with a picture of his mom. And then I thought, again, Tope, it's interesting. I watched a lot of Tope today, and in the run game, he actually will mash some people. Like, as I've seen Alex Dunlap's grades in the last few weeks, wondering what in the heck's got into him. He's been really good when he's just asked to be big and to roll out on people. Mm-hmm. When he's got to step back and pass protect and, I think move a little more, be a little more athletic is when he struggles. But I thought like he played hard, and that little bit of extra effort of having a 6-year senior on the field today in his last game that he wanted to win. And I thought he and that offensive line weren't good all day, but man, they played hard and they played to the whistle, and effort isn't the issue with that offensive line. Talent is, but I was happy to see him have a day today. Today was probably the best moment of his career. He started in a game. He played well. This is his last game. He got to take a lap, and he gets to have the moment on senior day. And I know that he would have rather have had his mom there, but it was still a touching little moment. I'm sure he'll remember that for the rest of his life, to say the least.
It's an interesting thing with Tope. First, we spoke to him on Monday of this week. Hands down, the best interview of any athlete that I've had since I've been, here since 2014. Like, hands down, no one comes close to the level of sincerity, the level of being articulation, maturity, just everything, just genuine excitement, happiness. Like, I mean, he talked a little bit about, he talked a lot about what his mom and what that loss was like for him to catch, and losing her to cancer, and what it's been like for the people who've been able to support him, after that, losing her. And, he also talked about he's had how many offensive line coaches. He was a guy that was switched to defense at one point, like early in his career. And Ketch, you and I both know that there were some beliefs from, previous staffs that this guy wasn't good. Like, there was just some beliefs that he's not going to hit the field, and they shouldn't have him out there on the field. And, Kyle Flood was like the one guy that seemingly was able to get the most out of Tope to the point where, we heard Sarkisian talking about Tope earlier, this season, talking about how much progress he had been making. And there was probably like a little like skepticism because you're like, Tope, like that's what you're talking about, Tope? But when he's gotten out there, he has been great. He has balled out, and for he will forever have this memory. Even though it may not have ended the way that it would, when we start thinking about transfer portals and guys just leaving at a catch, he's got 2 degrees, from the University of Texas. So, a guy that could have started his life and started his career, be able to do this. There's a part of me now, Catch, that I look at it and say, "You know what, Tope? You do the damn thing. Keep going. Keep pushing. Let's see what happens. For pro day, and see if there's somebody that's in love with you as an unrestricted free agent, and see what happens when you get to camp. Like you don't know. But I definitely very just uplifting, and as we always know, like." Parents should always outlive their kids. So, having to deal with that as a young man, that loss, and then be able to overcome. And he was very happy that the staff gave him so much time in the spring to take as much time as he needed to kind of recover emotionally from that. It was definitely probably, when we think about this day, that's probably the highlight of it. There's Roshan, and then there's something good for, Tope as well.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, my favorite moment, I think, of favorite quiet, I'll remember that, I think, for a long time. And I don't always remember all the senior day moments, but that one stood out a little bit more than others. Anything else from today as we start to wrap up the final post-game show of the 2021 season? Shout out to the Loewy Law Firm for being the sponsor of the Orangebloods post-game show the entire season. Adam Loewy and the Loewy Law Firm, absolutely one of the best partners that we have over at orangebloods.com. If you need to sue somebody or like personal damage, that's the dude. Let him make you money. Loewy will get it done. Any final parting shots? Not even necessarily parting shots. Just, is there anything from today that we forgot?
Well, I was going to say that, someone just put it on the screen, so thank you, Michael. The tight ends played well. We saw there was a Cade Brewer, and then Jared Wiley was able to get in there and do a couple of things. So, we saw a little bit more of the tight ends in this game. And so, that I would say, seeing that was probably something else. Probably the only other thing I think we didn't touch on today.
Was that the best catch of Cade Brewer's career?
I mean, probably.
It's up there, right? Like,
probably, yeah.
I was trying to run through the Rolodex in my head of the all-time best Cade Brewer catches. I know he's had a couple of really good ones. That was a really good one, though, today, too. So, it was good to see. I always like when seniors on their last home days have, like, moments. Little moments. Cade Brewer gets a touchdown like that in his final game. Good for him. I'm trying to think. Let me look at the stat sheet real quick. Just making sure there's nothing else we talked about. You know what? Real quick, Jordan Whittington, his return to the offense didn't quite do, I think, what we thought it might do a couple of weeks ago. It will be interesting to see Jordan just go back to the lab and try to come back next year and put together a full season. And if he's able to do that, along with Xavier Worthy and any other additional pieces they can bring into the wide receiving position, that would be a good thing. Shout out to Cameron Dicker. He misses the extra point, but was good on 3 field goals today. None of them super long, but, he's had such a good season that, I don't want to leave him out, considering he did play an important role. Other than that, though, like, I feel like we've hit on the main things. You know what? One more baby attaboy.
Okay.
Brendan Schooler. Attaboy to that dude. You know why? Because I feel like there's been a whole lot of violence against Brendan Schooler this season because he hasn't always played well. but I don't remember today. He was third on the team in tackles, and I don't remember a moment today where I was like, oh, the defense got beat because Brendan Schooler did something. There were some other safeties on the field that I thought that about today, but I didn't think that about Brendan Schooler. And considering that was the last game of his career, shout out to him for fighting his guts out until the very bitter end for a guy that wasn't at Texas his entire career, he seems like one of the guys that all of this matters to a lot. And doesn't always, he ain't the best player on the team, but if you had 85 guys caring as much as that dude appears to care, you'd probably go a long way if you could combine that with some additional talent.
It's fair assessment.
Other than that, I think I'm good.
Well, I will say this. This will be my parting shot. And I'm sure you'll piggyback on this, but I want to say thank you for everybody who watched this post-game show throughout the entire year. Thank you to Loewy Law Firm. This is something that it's great that you guys have caught it. It's so funny that we can sit back and see the evolution of what this post-game show was, because when we started doing this show, what was it, 2015, 2016? What was our first year of it? I have to go back and look, but it may have been 2015 where we started saying, okay, what's a different way to give a post-game presentation? And we came up with all right, this will be it. And working with a platform of Be Live and trying to, do certain things and doing these shows at midnight and 1 a.m. and not, starting with the biggest audience. We didn't have a sponsor. It was just, Ketch and I talking, basically. Sometimes we had technical difficulties, internet issues. I mean, you name it, we've done it. But we've been doing it for a long time, and we're just glad that it's built up a lot of momentum where you guys can see it now and see the evolution of it. Shout out to our man Michael, who helped us with a lot of these graphics this year.
Anwar, we had a producer this year.
Yes, like it literally, who the producer was? Me. It was literally me talking and then putting stuff on the screen and taking it off and talking and putting stuff on the screen and not even having like all these bells and whistles where this looks nice. It was as basic could be. It's like having like a band that's performing locally, and then all of a sudden kind of someone's like, oh, we'll put you on a bigger stage. You're like, oh, well, this looks better. You ever see the movies, Catch, when those bands like walk in to the theater or something, and they start looking around and like, wow, this looks amazing. And so I just want to say thank you for everybody who has done it, whether you've been here from day one or you just started this season, or maybe it's the first time you've done it. But check this out. But Ketch and I, even though the post-game show is gone, we'll still have Overreaction Mondays. We'll still have things throughout the week. We'll probably do some more live stuff because we really enjoy the live stuff and the feedback. But overall, I just want to say thank you, for everyone for your support. Even though you may not like us sometimes, and I know, I see all the comments, and sometimes it's all good. But overall, as long as you're supporting and watching, we appreciate it, and we look forward to doing it again next year.
Yeah, I was about to say thanks to Michael Rockman for doing a great job the entire season in producing the post-game show. Sometimes you and I will get to talking, and I'll be like, oh, the comments and the stats are constantly moving around on the screen, and it doesn't all get done just because Anwar and I are now able to focus on purely being able to be hosts and hopefully informative and entertain at the same time. But Michael, you were great all season long. And just to echo Anwar's thoughts, we'll be back on Monday. Like the Monday Overreaction show takes on a whole new life because now we just get to react to the weekend. So it's been a while, Anwar, since you and I have just been able to come back from a weekend, no Texas football to necessarily, a game to react to. Mm-hmm. That Cowboys-Raiders game happened on Sunday. I probably would show up on Monday with a few overreactions. Just a few. Just a few. It'll be nice to go into the off season and be able to have a little bit more fun and everything to not be so serious all the time. I think sometimes some of our best content is when we don't necessarily have to constantly be covering a 4-7, 5-7 team day in and day out like it's life or death. But look, for myself and Anwar Richardson and Michael Rockman and the entire Orangebloods crew, thanks to all you guys for watching the video. Give us a like. Leave your comments in the comments section. Check out all of our content moving forward. Subscribe to the channel. It's only just begun. Now we move into the incredibly critical how does Texas improve itself stage of the 2022 offseason. We'll be with you to hold your hand and carry you all the way through to next September. Thanks for watching. Seriously, from the bottom of our hearts, I'm looking at it right now. There's 334 watching the video right now. You guys have no idea how much on a day when it didn't feel like there were 334 people in the stands at times, to have you guys hanging with us an hour and a half after the Kansas State game is over. We do notice it. We remember the names of those of you who are in the comments section hanging out with us. We'll do this again next year, but we'll see you on Monday. Later.